Welcome to the Great Awakening Show. I am Joanne-Divine Life Yogini, and on this week's show, we have Simon Heathcote. In this show, we discuss why it is so important to awaken, to perform your inner work, to go through the dark night of the soul, and to shine your light at this greatest time to be alive. Simon founded Soul Vision in 2009 to integrate the soul into modern therapy after experiencing its absence at both personal and professional levels. He spent 8 years at the Priory, specializing in the treatment of sex and love addiction, helping clients to find antidotes to their dis-ease through rediscovering their innate creativity and spirituality. Simon has developed a unique way of working, drawing on Jungian concepts, mysticism, and archetypal psychology to help return clients to their essence or deep soul. Simon posts divine truth and wisdom blogs on what is happening in our world at this great awakening time. And he wrote the free ebook, Ultimate Freedom, Light in Dark Times.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
Simon.
Hi,
welcome
Joe.
to the Great Awakening Show again.
Hi. Great to be back for a third time.
Lovely. I love it. Lovely, lovely.
Yeah.
So this is just I think it's energy is intensifying at this time. I really feel it, And why is this awakening the most important thing people can do? Tell us
Well,
why.
I think in a way, we've just been talking about it, haven't we? Because the unawakened state, which the world's in and in most individuals are in, is leading us down a road to disaster. So we cannot continue to live in an unawake state. For one thing, that would be the kind of contemporary answer based on what's going on today. But I think the deeper answer is that do we want to end suffering or not? Because our suffering comes from the mind, doesn't it, largely? And it's the mind that is the unawakened state. And so what we've got now is a society of people who've made the mind God, which is where the whole AI thing comes in, the mind going to its extremes, becoming God, and taking over from God, or whatever word you want to use, consciousness, goddess, whatever. But it's replacing real God. And that's why we're in such trouble, because people have become convinced now, astonishingly, that if they say, oh, I'm a cat, then they're actually a cat. Now, anyone with any amount of common sense knows this is complete madness. So what sort of people are believing these things? Well, people who have lost their mind or who have elevated the mind to godhood. That's what's happened. And that's what's being pushed. Total brainwashing, the anti-God movement, where consciousness is only seen as the mind, whereas mind is actually really only a small aspect of consciousness. Yes. But we've elevated mind to become everything. And now everybody's lost. And we're living in a nightmare.
Yes.
That's what's happening.
That's why it is so important to awaken at this time. It's crucial. It's crucial. There is so much being exposed, so much exposure at this time. What we were just talking about, The Sound of Freedom, the child sex trafficking, amazing movie, the Tim Ballard and Jim Caviezel, what an amazing actor. He played Jesus Christ. And it's just awakening so many people because they're on every single podcast on the whole of the internet promoting this.
Good.
And so many people are being awakened by this. Even if they haven't even seen the movie, they're being awakened by what these two amazing heroes, Tim Ballard going into the darkest places on earth to go and rescue these children who are being raped and abused by these pedophiles. It's just unbelievable. So at least it's bringing awareness to it, you know.
Well, I mean, like you, I've been alarmed over the last few years how much it takes to get people to shift and wake up at all or question things. And it seems to me it's only recently when either their money has been threatened or their children are being threatened that actually there might be something coming up.
You are so true. And that is why people, when it happens, like what is happening, they had to, they tried to get that movie exposed, put out in the cinemas for 5 years. Disney wouldn't do it. Right. Disney had it and they stopped it from coming out.
Really?
But can you believe this?
Okay.
When they do it to the children, this is the thing that's going to wake the people up. You are so true. It's so right, because that's the one thing that all decent, loving men and women and mothers and fathers and uncles around the world and grandfathers and grandmothers, we've all got in common. Save the children. We love the children,
Well, exactly. Hopefully there's enough love left in the bank in people to come through this, because, and it's a question of the battle between, we could say good and evil, but it's between the heart and the mind, really, isn't it? So I do think it's about heart and mind and winning hearts and minds, because so many minds are just lost. I mean, I was watching something on GB News last night with the Bank of England coming out and saying men can have babies. And I'm thinking,
it's just
A, what's it got to do with financial services? For one thing. Then B, what the hell are they talking about, these people?
It's ridiculous.
They're obviously under the bigger agenda. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And, godless societies where we head.
Yeah. It's really
disaster.
It is. But this is the Great Awakening. So we have to go through that darkness for the people, because there are all them wonderful people out there. They're going, no, you do not do this to our children. You do not indoctrinate them. You do not sexualize them. We're not having it. We don't want trans people selling us, the beer and all of this. We don't want them to take over women's sports and everything. It has to get that way for people to make the stand. So this is the most, important awakening of our time, I believe. It's just phenomenal, because you can see people blatantly see it, can't they? How the demise can be, what they're doing to all the children in schools and stuff like that.
Yes, that's right. And I think although they're not really, we're being unrepresented and hidden in mainstream media, alternative media is exploding with the truth. Great.
Yeah. So Simon, your wonderful booklet, Ultimate Freedom. Tell us what about this booklet and why did you produce it?
Well, I think I produced it now for the reasons we've been talking about, which is like things are getting pretty urgent in my view, and I think also traditionally, Joe, a lot of this knowledge and wisdom was the province of mystics. It was the province of certain groups of people. It was the province of monks. It wasn't in the province of the ordinary man and woman in the street. And I think what's happening now, I mean, I've called this time, I think I've said to you before, I call it the karmic full stop. The choices people made over the last few years around their health and everything reveal where individual souls are on their journey.
Yes.
And in my view. So, and I've been quite shocked as to the sort of people who don't understand what's going on, and then sometimes nicely surprised by those that do. But I think most people, what it's shown me is that most people are pretty clueless and have completely been seduced by the Pied Piper up the mountain, often to their doom. We know lots of people have died. So I really felt that as part of my mission in life, to use a kind of hokey word, that I wanted to transmit what I've learned in life so far. And I don't kind of say I'm an enlightened guy or anything like that, but what I've learned so far. And of course, I'm always reading and researching and looking and meditating. So there'll be, I'll see things differently in the future, but I think I've understood a lot of the basic tenets of spirituality reasonably well, certainly well enough to kind of pass them on to people who haven't really come across these things before. So really looking in the booklet at what you're actually liberating is not you. You're actually liberating yourself from you. You're liberating yourself from this unawakened state.
Yes.
You know, it's not like it's understanding that you're the problem. Or as it says in the 12-step program, you're the problem, not the solution. So it's looking at how do I get beyond and behind the mind? You know, how do we lift the veils of the mind to go back to our original nature, which is emptiness, silence, before we've overlaid all this crap of the mind all over it. You know, and I think a lot of politicians, a lot of our leaders are completely under the sway of mind. And I think that mind, if you follow it, it has a natural path. And the end game is all this AI stuff that's going on now, you know, where the mind has totally become God. So I think part of my thing with this booklet, and I'm actually going to rewrite it and update it and probably put it online for sale. But this one is for people who want something just to get them going, which is, you know, is free. But I think that just understanding that we have to cut the ego at the root. It's the root that we have to pull up. It's our very foundations that are wrong. The assumption that I'm an individual and I'm separate from everybody else is wrong. But it's what we all believe because we're given a name and a form and off we go.
Yeah.
But I think, you know, Rumi said, sorry. Oh.
No, and what you're talking about there is like, you know, ego and the true self. Yeah. It's an eternal battle that we all have every day, isn't it? Ego and the true self. And we are not our mind.
Yes.
We are the soul consciousness, the observer behind all of that. So, you know, our thoughts and our ego is a tool that we can use to live in this world. We need a little bit of it. Otherwise, we won't be able to function in this world of duality. Yes. You know, but as long as it doesn't take over your whole life, which it does for many, many people, you know, that's where when you meditate, when you contemplate, when you go within, you are getting to know who you truly are, which is this divine spark of soul consciousness within. You know, that's your enlightening state, isn't it? That's who we truly are. So it,
Totally right. But the problem is, as you've just intimated, we're at a point in history now where the servants become the master. You know, as you rightly said, you know, we need a little bit of ego. We need it as a bridge between conscious and unconscious worlds. But it's become the king. It's sitting on the throne of consciousness, waiting like a toddler, saying, look, I'm in charge. Yeah. Without really knowing anything, without having any wisdom, you know. And so we look at these people in positions of power. And I often look and think, how is this the best we've got? Yeah. And is this the best we've got in terms of wisdom? Are these the best in our country? You've got to be kidding me. It's bonkers, isn't it? It's entirely mad. Yeah. And people are, you know, without other choices, people are voting these people in and being seduced by their message and not understanding they're being lied to a lot of the time.
Yeah. It's all lies.
Completely insane. I mean, I mean, everything, I think as another Rumi thing, he said that, you know, earth is a mirror of heaven. And I guess in a mirror, everything's backwards, isn't it? So here we're living life back to front, not knowing that we've got it completely wrong. So I think, you know, we've got to dig this thing out at the root, however uncomfortable it is. You know, a bit like the child thing you're saying, we've got to go underground.
We've got to go into the darkness. Caves, we have to expose that darkness. We can't go forward into the light of the new earth. We can't go forward into that without looking at the darkness. And that's why I saw in so many comments, so many people are scared to even look at this interview because they don't want to look at what is truly happening, the darkness. I'm sorry. This world is full of it. Right. We have to go in it to release it. It's like we have to go inside of ourselves and release our darkness to get to our light, to allow more space for the light to come in. Otherwise we can't. You know what I mean? And on that note, I'd really like you to tell us about God's promise, because this is beautiful. This is like, I love this. Really beautiful.
This is a lovely thing, because I think many of us will remember, you know, I'm old enough to have been to Sunday school. My grandfather was a vicar, so I was dragged along twice a week, didn't enjoy it much, used to giggle and mess around with my brother. But I do remember a few quotes, and there's some good quotes in the Bible. And one of the famous ones is where Jesus said, "Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things will be added unto you." So in other words, put God first, you'll be looked after.
So true.
But there's another one that people don't know about. Yeah, by Krishna in Hinduism, and I'm going to read it.
Go on
He
then.
says, and it's a really important quote, he says, "I take the responsibility of sustenance for the one who follows the religion of their own true nature. For such a one, all that is required is supplied automatically." So he's saying exactly the same thing as Christ said. You know, and I think if we looked at other religions, we'd probably find the same message in all of them. But what the question is, what is the religion of your own true nature?
Yes.
And your own true nature, I believe, is consciousness, or the I am, and awareness.
Which is that part of God within, isn't it? Which is that part of God within.
That's right.
You know? Mm-hmm.
Totally. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we've got to follow, not the dogmas and the, rules. We've got to follow, that God within.
Mm.
And then we get looked after. And that means it's interesting. I sometimes in my life these days, Joe, that I'll think, I trust the flow of money and work to come in. Sometimes it's very quiet. Sometimes it's very busy. I've been doing this freelance for 25 years. So I've learned to trust that flow. And every single time when things are a bit low, people turn up. Always. I had 2 new people turn up today, and I had a quiet time. And then last week I had a quiet time and I suddenly got tax rebate for 1,200 quid. So it's like, I've learned that promise is true, because even though I don't do it perfectly, I do put the divine first.
Yes.
I try to.
Yes. And so do I. And you know which is one of the most profound things that I have felt in my life. I've been on my spiritual journey for many, many, many years, but it was only really a few years ago when I started meditating, truly meditating every single day, going in, I like to go in with my blindfold on, because I like to go in and then go up and, focus on the pineal and the light, the divine love light energy, because God is photons of light coming in, filling myself up. When I started doing that, I could see things falling into place, because I'm connecting with the divine. When I'm doing that, I'm putting God first, God, Goddess first, right? Before me, I'm connecting in that way with my true higher divine self. And that is when things start to fall into place. And that's what leads me on. Why does the divine need to take an interest in us, or us need to take an interest in the divine before things really start to happen in our lives? And it is so profound.
Totally right. Totally
That's what I've just said. It's been exactly the truth. That's what's happened in my life through meditation and through prayer. Prayer and meditation have been so important.
Me too. Totally. I mean, you remind me, there's a little Sufi story from a 9th century female Sufi mystic called Rabia. And she was asked by an aspirant, "Can I turn towards God?" And she says, "No, first he must look upon you, then you can turn towards him." So it's like, we have to do our bit before we're noticed, like you just said. If we're not doing our bit, why would the divine be giving us any time and attention?
Exactly.
We have to show willingness. We have to show a willingness to surrender. We have to show a willingness to not put other gods first.
Yes. And Simon,
but not many people want to do it.
Yeah. And Simon, we have to show a willingness to believe, to have faith. It's like, if you don't believe in the angels, if you don't believe in God, Goddess, if you don't believe in that divine force, how can they make that channel to come in? They can't reach you, and you have to quieten the mind and take away all the thinking and the chatter for you to be a channel to receive them divine intelligence and that divine ideas, which is so important. That's where meditation is just vital. That's when things start to change in your life. And I've done quite a few of these videos, my Great Awakening shows now, and many of my guests have always said that my life was a mess until I started to go within and commune with God. That's it. That's when it starts working out. Totally.
That's right. And you also don't know who you're going to meet. So you might come across a spiritual teacher who is absolutely right for you, for instance, if you have the karma for that. There's a great line in the Yoga Vasista which says the company of sages converts fullness to emptiness. So we think about the mind being full, filling us up and getting in our way, that the company of the sage will empty us out. Yeah. So we can be that divine nature again.
Yes.
And I'm a person I've got an Indian, got a history with family born ninja, etc. So I have a natural affinity with the Indian way, Eastern way of teaching. And I've met teachers because I've worked on myself.
Yes.
I've met some really good, profound spiritual teachers because of that. But I think also, it is about, what do I want? Because I think one of the other things we were going to talk about is about being ready, because I think in some way the soul has to be ready, doesn't it?
Yes. But also,
otherwise you won't want this stuff.
Yes. When you're ready, the teacher will come. But I had my guru for many, many years, and this is really funny. And then something happened. I went to see him in Watkins bookshops, and he told me to buy this book. And then he turned around. He was really rude to me, right? He was so rude. And I just looked at him and I just walked out. But when I went home, it took me a few weeks to process everything. Then I realized he was telling me, you don't need a guru. I am here until the guru in you comes. And then I went home, and for the next 4 years, I stayed in my cave meditating and became my own guru, because that's what he was telling me. You don't need me anymore. Go within, find your own Buddha head, your own God within, because that's the true teacher.
Yes.
You can only learn so much from the outside 3D word and all these people for so long, but then you have to go within, and the teacher within will be your teacher. Profound.
Totally right, because any real teacher will tell you the true teacher is the guru. They will not claim you for themselves. They will tell you that the true teacher is the guru. I was listening to a story about Ramana Maharshi's main devotee, Papaji, the other day. And he said, I used to get up at 2:30 a.m., meditate till 9:30 in the morning, like 7 hours, go to work in India, do a day's work. I thought, geez, this is a serious guy. And he said, one day all my practices left me. He said, I couldn't practice anymore, I couldn't meditate anymore. And a lot of people were saying to him, oh, you've still got to do it. Come and see me, I'll help you with your practice. But he went to Ramana Maharshi, who said, do you still need to be on the train when you reach the destination? In other words, the practice has done its work in you. You don't need to carry on with the practice anymore. It's done.
That's true. That's
true.
I
think that connects with what you're saying about, once the inner guru has become complete and taken over, you don't need to do that anymore. You may do it for reasons of tradition and culture, but you don't need to.
Yeah. It's so true. But it's so difficult for people, when they're not on the path, they're not on the awakening path, and they're ignorant to it. I mean, how do we get to know ourselves when we are ignorant to our true identity? That's so, for people who don't understand about, what the true identity about the ego and the true self, because, the ego to me is the negativity, is, you can even call it Satan if you wish. The negativity, that's, that's that part of it. That's the evil. That's the trying to take you over, the evil, negative thoughts and all of that, combined to the righteous, the true, the right brain, the true, beautiful Godhead, the true self within. So, yes, it's very difficult for people to know ourselves when we're ignorant to who our true self within.
I think it's a brilliant question, because you're absolutely right. Because can the ego see itself? Can the ego overcome itself? No, it can't. There has to be a chink of light appear. And I think it connects back to what we were saying about timing. As you said, when the student's ready, the teacher will appear. It's like we need to be at a point where, because we can't force timing, can we? We cannot make ourselves be ready to begin the awakening process. Can't force yourself. What you can do is cultivate the ground. So that might be spiritual reading. It might be starting some meditation. It might be doing some breath work. But there has to be an interest at some point, I think, where you go, right, I'm actually not being fulfilled by the world in the way that I used to be. Because I think that's what happens to a lot of people. They either reach a painful rock bottom, or they do it a bit more quietly and say, well, you know what, that job doesn't satisfy me anymore. That relationship is not really doing it for me the way that I hoped, you know, and another relationship won't do it. There has to be a kind of questioning and curiosity, I think, where you go, right, and sometimes there's also a painful longing that Sufis talk about, you know.
And sometimes, and sometimes everything breaks down from them. They start going through the dark night of the soul. The dark night of the soul is where you lose the job, you lose the relationship, you lose your house, you lose everything because you didn't wake up. It's like the divine's like, wake up. Yes. Wake up.
Yeah. That's right.
So you have to they have to strip it all away from you to take you to that rock bottom place, the dark night of the soul, for you to, you know, oh wow, now I can begin again. You know, at 0 point, you know, it's, wow.
Exactly right. I mean, you know, that's the great reset, really, isn't it? You reset yourself from that place of pain, where you go, there's got to be a better way. There's got to be a better way than the way I'm living.
Yeah.
Yes. And stop looking down and out into the world, start looking inwards and upwards.
Yes.
And I think that's the turnaround. And the Sufis call it Tawbah. You know, that place of the turning point of the soul where you start to look inside, you start to look back towards the divine. You're not looking out through the eyes so much at the world. You're not so interested. And I think that period, that as you call it rightly, the dark night of the soul, it can go on for a long time, can't it?
Yes.
I think for some people it can go on for lifetimes.
Yes.
You know, I don't think it's an easy phase.
No.
At all. You know, and I see it in therapy clients, Joe, a lot, where they're going, well, I've got lots of money and I've got a good career and I've got a happy family. What's wrong with me? I'm not happy.
Yeah. It's the
and
soul.
It's like, you know, and
it's
then
the
they're blaming themselves. Yes, but they blame themselves. They think they're being ungrateful. That's what their mind tells them. And they're so relieved when I'm able to show them it's not that you're being ungrateful. It's nothing to do with any of those notions that you've got. It's actually to do with your soul's crying out for something else. That's it. You know, just because society doesn't train us in that, and we get lost and think, you know, something wrong with it.
Yeah, it's spiritual, and it's they're crying out for spiritual fulfillment.
That's right.
It's spiritual fulfillment. Everything we are here on this duality, in living in this false flesh and blood, you know, body that's covering our true energetic spiritual self. You know, our energy body is crying out for union with God. Union, which means spiritual fulfillment, because we come from the oneness into the separateness, right?
Yes.
We separate from that oneness, and we are eternally looking for that oneness again. And, you know, that's why that oneness is balanced between here on the material, between our darkness and our light, between our masculine and our feminine, between our good and our bad, between our, you know, that's what it is. It's being in that balanced, that whole balanced place. You know, because we can't get rid of our darkness, can we? It's a part of us.
No, we have to embrace it. We have to embrace it. You know, that's as simple as that, and not reject ourselves for it.
Yeah.
You know, you mentioned there's something else I think we were going to talk about around the divine feminine and
please tell us about the divine feminine at this time. It's so important at this time.
Totally. I mean, we've had this issue with the patriarchy and the divine, the masculine falling into shadow now for hundreds and hundreds of years, haven't we? If we go back to the first book on romantic love, Tristan and Isolde, 1,000 years ago, they're talking in there about the masculine shadow and the masculine tyranny and the power drive and the feminine qualities of being in relatedness. So what's happened is that our culture's swung into a total imbalance of shadow masculine qualities driving us forward without being counterbalanced by the feminine qualities of the heart, of being, of relatedness. And in mythology, they represent the divine masculine sometimes as a sword, cutting through things and destroying, and the feminine as the harp. And that, you know, the harp creates lullabies and soothes and relates and brings us back to a state of peace.
Yes.
And it's interesting that the soul is often seen as feminine. You know, that the quality of beingness Yeah, we don't need to be in this becoming all the time.
No.
This becoming is time bound and is
Or doing. Yeah, or doing. We need to be.
Exactly. Doing and becoming. Yeah, we've done too much of that, and we've rejected beingness, we've rejected softness, we've rejected the heart, and look where we are.
Yeah.
You know, we haven't done very well with this imbalance, I don't think. I think anyone can see that, hopefully.
Definitely. And now at this time, you know, the feminine part of the Godhead, because in the book of Genesis, you know, on the first pages, it says Elohim, and you break that name down, and it is El for the masculine, and the Ohim is the feminine. It says it there. It's in Hebrew, and it's the masculine and the feminine. God is masculine and feminine coming in together. It's like we're born, we come down from the Father, the great Father, and the great Mother is the earth, the material. So we need what we, you know, she teaches us. Then we rise back up. Our Kundalini rises back up. Having the mother energy, the Kundalini rises up to meet Shiva and Shakti for the enlightenment, the father and the mother. It's the eternal, divine, feminine principle aspect in all things, is it not? And that's why it's out of balance.
Oh God,
the world
is
out of balance, totally out of balance.
Totally.
That's why.
Oh, totally.
You know, raising that.
Yeah. We're top heavy with time and mind. Crazy. You know, we've got to do something about it now, because otherwise.
That's why women coming up now, the women, we are in goddess energy, I believe. And I believe that it's the goddesses and the divine mothers coming in, the grandmothers old, all of that energy, all the ancient energy is rising back up again. And anything that does not propagate or be done in love will dissolve. That's why we have to bring up and expose this darkness. We cannot go forward into the light, into this new world without doing that. But we can do it in a way that is coming from our heart. We don't have to do it. It always has to be done, you know, with love, with divine honor, with divine intelligence, with divine peace. We always speak from there, not from the ego, from here. You know, do it the way of the goddess. You know, and I just did a beautiful interview with the Sisters of the Rose, who are bringing the goddess energy back, and they have, you know, all around the world meetups bringing the goddess energy back, and men are joining because they know that for bring balance and stability back to this earth plane, this realm, we must have that balance. Otherwise, the world is like flying with one wing. Isn't it?
Absolutely right. That's funny. It's like, you know, we're a bird with one wing at the moment. I actually wrote that down. You know, it's such a good metaphor, the bird with one wing. You know, we need both wings. And we're not saying we're going to throw out the masculine. That wouldn't help us either. But we're not saying that's right. That we need to get out of this shadow. Got to get out from under this shadow, this cloud that's hanging over the earth.
That's right. And we're not saying
no good.
And we're not saying for women to be above the masculine. We're talking, look, masculine, patriarchy, no. Matriarchy, no. Unity consciousness between the sexes, unity, divine masculine, not toxic or shadow masculine, divine feminine, not toxic or shadow feminine. Divine masculine, divine feminine, coming together in unity consciousness and love awareness is what this whole awakening is about, you know. And the men, they have to allow this, they have to awaken themselves to allow the feminine to rise, to be in her rightly, jointly placed with them. Yeah?
That's right. And I think it's, you know, why it's not good when we know that all is one to kind of put the people who are persecuting us in the kind of evildoers camp. I think somehow they have to be approached and their humanity, you know, re-engaged, you know, and of course we can't force that. There's certain psychopaths who are never going to see that in this life. But I think there are people who are kind of swept up in, whether it's the last 3 years, whether it's doctors and nurses who've been persuaded to act on behalf of these people who are not essentially bad people, but have been caught up in fear of losing their income or whatever. Those people can be worked with, I believe. A lot of those people are already awake anyway. And I think some of those are willing to see that they've done the wrong thing.
Yes.
They're people like us, at the end
That's
of the
right.
day.
And their soul, their soul longs for, awakening and to belong and to do the right thing, because they realize that many have been coerced, many have been put in positions where, it wasn't fair on them to do that. And I believe that's why this is coming out now with the children. It has to come out, because that's one thing that we've all got in common. Yeah. It's the beautiful children. Yeah. My goodness.
That's
goodness.
Right.
The innocence, the purity.
We represent our own hearts.
The sacredness of our future generations. We cannot go on until this has, and this is the one thing that's going to unite humanity, I believe. Yeah.
I really hope you're right. I can see that can happen. Because it's also reminding us of the child within us, isn't it? It's reminding us of our own hearts when we work with our children, and so we've all got that child within us. No one wants to be so divorced from the child within that they're capable of committing atrocity. That's insane. That I think even in the worst people, that is still there somewhere.
It is. And people can see, what is happening, not just with that really bad, child trafficking, but, what they're doing to the schools, what they're doing, the transgender, all of this, what they're doing to the children. They are completely brainwashing them and confusing them. But, it has to be this way, because it's awakening the average man on the streets going, I'm not drinking Bud Light anymore. I'm not having this. I want my boys to be boys and girls to be girls, and I want them to be free to be like that. Yes. As I was.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's beautiful, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Yeah, we have to see it. And I think because people have been so blind, it is going to take something really severe for them to see it. It has to be something horrific for them to see it. Otherwise, they're just going to float along.
And otherwise, this will just come back again in 50 years. Yeah. Right? It will just happen
exactly.
again. It will happen again, and it will happen again. That's why all of what's happened with COVID and the vaccines is going to bring down big pharma, which it has to do, because we can't inject our beautiful one-day-old babies anymore with all of these toxic vaccine concoctions that are causing mass damage for the rest of their life. It's absolutely ridiculous. So this is the end of that. And this is it's all coming. It's all the systems in all ways. So grand awakening. That's why
I guess many souls have been prepared to sacrifice themselves at this time.
Yeah.
God.
That's why it's so important.
Interesting to see the Nigel Farage thing with the banking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this is why it's so important for all people to take the responsibility, to do the work, to do the research, to go online, to do the course, to find that person who's going to help them with their awakening, to do their meditation, to do their inner work. It's a responsibility, not just for us to awaken, for our future generations. It's a tipping point that we are at this time.
I totally agree. Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. And and people just go towards where they're drawn. Whoever they want to work with, if anyone or whatever group, they go where you're called to. Some people aren't for it. No one's for everyone. Just go with what you feel.
Yes. And there's so much help out there. There's so many courses. There's so much help. There's so many spiritual teachers. There's so many people who can help you, find your way, because there's many ways, there's many paths, and they are all sacred. Right. There's only one God, but there's many ways to get there to it. Yeah. There's only one God within. And they're all sacred.
Exactly right.
So take your pick, but you've got to take the responsibility and stop being a victim and stop being brainwashed by, out there, because you are an autonomous, beautiful, creation of God, Goddess. You know, you are divine. And when we wake up to that, that's where our power, we are creatrix, we are creator of our life, of this life. And we do it individually, but we do it collectively. So we don't fight their system. We turn around and we go the other way and we awaken ourselves to create our new. And their system will just collapse eventually.
Yeah. That's right. And I think, you know, because I see this obviously happening through individual clients. And one of the things people are frightened of course, is facing their own emptiness. You know, usually through childhood, you know, they've been frightened of their own emptiness. They've had a lot of pain, emotional, psychological pain. And so the first thing people hit is their emotional pain towards their own emptiness. But once they get over that emotional pain and find that their emptiness is actually what they are, you know, before this overlay of thinking and mind and mental patterns and samskaras, then they're okay. But we all have to get over that little bridge first, don't we? We have to face the pain that we've had.
That's right.
I understand that everybody wants to do it, but I think there comes a point where you've got no choice.
Yeah. Because otherwise you're just going to be in suffering. You're just going to be in that pain and that suffering place for forever. And then when you die, you're going to have to come back and relive it. And the same life, the same thing over and over until you turn to the right, you become righteous, you get it right, you know, and you face it, and you're not in delusion anymore. You step out of that victim, you become a co-creator, you know, you become empowered, you realize that you are, you know, divine. And when that happens, you start getting that beautiful light all around you. That is that divine protection. We are divinely protected when we go within and we've got that beautiful connection and communion with God, Goddess. We are invincible. You know, prayers, they really, really, really work. Yeah. Having that faith, that even that blind faith is so important because that's your protection. That's your protection. You know, they can't do anything to us without our coercion, without our authority to allow that to happen.
No, it's good. That's right. You know, and I think many of us are under the law of grace now, not under the law of karma.
Yeah.
We are protected. It's if they don't even see us sometimes.
Yes.
You know,
I love that.
Remember when I learned about that.
That's right.
Being under the law of grace, not under the law of karma. And,
exactly. And your virtues, your vices, first of all, it's like the ego. Your vices and the ego and the lower chakras is all the same thing. They turn into the virtues, right? Which then, the 7 vices then turn into the 7 virtues, which then turn into the graces. Yeah?
Yeah. Yes.
That's how it works. You can
so nice to feel free, isn't it?
Transformation.
Yes.
You know, you're turning the darkness into the light, from dark to light.
And getting to that point where you know you're free and that actually nothing can hurt you anymore. That you've done that journey.
That, Simon, is true freedom. That is true enlightenment. That is true sovereignty. That's true redemption. You know, I feel like that now. I feel like I am free. And I am just so happy. I am just so happy because I know.
UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good. UK Health Radio, the station that makes you feel good.
Yes, and that's the thing about when we were talking about the 2 lights that, you know, the real. So I was saying in Hinduism, there's this idea that reality has several qualities, and one of those qualities is self-shining. So what we mean by that is that you are your own light. You do not have to live by reflected light. You do not have to chase the light of this physical world. You do not have to chase objects in the world or objects in the mind, which are all reflective lights come from reflected light. There's only the divine, the Paratman light, which you are. So once you're established in that light, it's easy to start seeing the other light is illusory. Whereas most people are following the false light. They're following the illusory light to dire places because they cannot see that old phrase that we know from childhood, all that glitters is not gold. Just because something's shining doesn't mean it's good. Okay, we're all drawn to shiny things. I get it. But shiny careers and shiny cars, and that's not going to heal us. What we want is that bathing in our own light, we see that our own light is sufficient. And I think that's what they mean by self-shining. That reality is self-shining. It's nothing to do with reflections or second-hand products. It's like, once we know we are that light, then there's no going back. And I think that's what we're talking about.
That is absolutely beautiful. I love that self-shining. And that's our protection, from all the negativity that comes in. It just goes, it just repels off, and when you're standing in that, because whatever we give out, we get back. Whatever our belief is about us, so it shall be. What you believe, you shall receive, about yourself. So when you are in that self-shining, it's just beautiful. You're just going to keep getting all of that back all the time. And, that's when, nothing can penetrate. It's impossible. It's impossible because we are that shining soul consciousness light of God within. And that's the one thing that I think their agenda, the dark ones, have done the worst to humanity, is to take our light away from us and just tell us that we are nothing, we are worthless, we are sinners, and we are not divine, we are not a part of God. That has been the worst thing that they have ever done. But now, with this great awakening, we are awakening to that light, to our magic, to the thing that we are divine. It's beautiful. We save ourselves with the help of the light.
Absolutely. Yeah, and we go back, because I think all of our work, our healing work, is decluttering. It's like decluttering the house. You're decluttering yourself, all those past stories, aren't you? You're decluttering yourself of thinking. So where you end up is back in resonance, exactly the same as the divine. Your resonance, when it gets to exactly the same as the divine, we could say we know enlightenment, although the individual that no longer exists in the same way. So it's not that the individual becomes enlightened; it's that enlightenment is all we are anyway.
Yeah,
and we know it. We become convicted of that fact.
Yes,
and
we live it. We breathe it. We live it. We breathe it. We give it out in every thought, feeling, word, and action in this everyday life. That's why going within and touching that divine love light energy, you're going to bring that into that and give that out into that 3D world.
Yeah, it's always good talking to you, because I always feel like shored up, like yes, you're speaking my language and I'm on track.
Yes. Yeah,
it's always good, because it's good to get that with someone else, isn't it? Where you go, I am on track. I'm not deluded. It's all happening.
Exactly. And that's why this conversation is so important, because, it is so important to awaken, to take the responsibility and to awaken yourself when the calling calls you and you're starting to look around and you're uneasy, and it's like, it's time now to do the work. It's time, to because then you're helping the whole world raise its vibration, ascending. We are all ascending. We are all evolving, and unless you move, that's why, suffering is good, because it moves us out of that comfort zone for us to see the light. Yeah. For us to be the light and for us to be the beacon and help everyone else. So, wow.
Yeah. And that's part of the answer to your first question about, for me, around, why is awakening the most important thing we can ever do? Because there's only one of us here. and it affects every apparent other individual, doesn't it?
There's only one soul consciousness, and it is shared by every living person on the planet. It's that oneness. And when we realize there can't be any wars, because we'll just be hurting ourselves, you know, it's beautiful.
Yeah, that's right. Who are we fighting? It's insane. But, you know, the more that shadow gets seen, the more clear we become.
Yeah.
And they're going to see, at some point, they're going to see. You know, they don't even know they're in pain. They don't even know all their plans, they're suffering, you know, but they will.
Simon, honestly, I love talking to you so much. We just, it's so wonderful, and it's so needed at this time. You know, if we can touch other souls with this beautiful conversation, you know, that's all that matters. You know what I mean? That's all that matters. So I just want to say thank you for your divine wisdom.
Totally. Even if it's just one.
Exactly.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for being on the Great Awakening Show again, and all of your divine truths, and for us coming together to share the light. And
for yours, thank you so much. And you know, that booklet is there for anyone who's listening. You know, I'm sure you've got it up as you had before, and I hope it benefits even one person. It doesn't matter about how many people.
Wonderful.
You know?